Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm calling back to order the recessed meeting of Planning and Development Council of April 16th, which ended when the time ran out. And of course, under our rules, actions taken or attempted to be taken after the time ran out are not valid. So we are still on item 7. And the delegations have been heard from, and the presentation has been presented. You have additional correspondence before you from one of the delegations, and the clerk's department has contacted everyone that signed in Monday evening to inform them that the meeting was continuing tonight. And I would look for a motion to approve or deny the application, and I would point out to you that it's an as-of-right application. Is there a motion? Councillor Duddick? Thank you. All in favor? Opposed if any, and that's carried. Now, the next item is, let's see, are we on number 8? Burloak Drive and Kerr Street grade separation projects. And Director Cozy is eager to tell us how soon this will happen, I hope.
I have a presentation, or I can answer questions. Well, I've got about 7 slides.
I'm eager for the presentation because I'd like the public to know when we're finally going to do this thing. Can we start construction tonight?
Sure.
All right.
The report before you this evening is on page 411 of the agenda, and I'll just walk you through the summary of the report. This is what we're calling the fundamental principles for cost-sharing agreements with Metrolinx for both the Kerr and Burloak Drive grade separation projects. Some brief history. The Burloak Drive is a boundary road with the city of Burlington. What that means is we share equally in the costs of maintaining the road as well as any capital costs. When I say we, that's Oakville and Burlington, carried out an area-wide transportation study back in the early 90s. That transportation study recommended a number of recommendations, including the underpass at Burloak. And that EA was updated in 1997. As I recall, it was mainly to update the implementation sequence because of the development of the Lakeshore Woods community. It moved up the construction of the Rebecca Bridge at the time. And the Rebecca Street Bridge was constructed in around the year 2000. And we call that the Bronte Radial Bridge, actually. And the Burloak project itself has been programmed into our capital forecast for a number of years. There was a funding announcement in 2015. It was a federal provincial funding announcement made, and which Oakville and Burlington staff, and likely most of you as well as the rest of council in Burlington, had interpreted as 100% or full funding announcement by the province and the federal government. We were advised later by Metrolinx that funding was actually to be applied for various projects along the rail corridor, so it did not amount to 100% funding of the Burloak project. Metrolinx advised us that it wanted to move forward on Burloak prior to their regional express rail program commencing, in particular the electrification of the rail line. And they wanted to partner with us in Burlington on the implementation of the Burloak Drive grade separation, because it's one of the top grade separations in the province, or at least along the Lakeshore West rail line, along with Kerr Street. Just as an anecdote, Burloak is ranked as number 8 along the corridor in importance, and Kerr Street's ranked as number 1. Metrolinx retained a consultant for a feasibility study and to update the old EA. The feasibility study outlined the options available to us for the grade separations. Metrolinx had a concern at the time that the 1994 EA may be stale. Contrary to the advice we provided them, but at the end of the day, they wanted to make absolutely sure. So they initiated a transit project assessment process to update the EA. That was completed in 2017, and the minister approved it just last month. So the TPAP reconfirmed the underpass option, and the project is going forward as a 4-lane project, but the underpass itself is being sized for 6 lanes. So when the time is there, when we need to widen to 6 lanes, it's just an exercise in pushing the curbs out from the sides. Metrolinx has included this project as part of their AFP process. AFP stands for Alternative Financing Procurement. It's another word for design build, where they retain consortiums to finance, design, and construct the project. The basis for a cost-sharing agreement is that it's a 50-50 cost share between Metrolinx and the municipalities. Because Burloak is a boundary road, Oakville and Burlington would therefore contribute 25% of the project cost based on the boundary road agreement. The cost share in this case is based on the full project cost, including previous costs incurred by municipalities. That may seem simple enough, but typically the cost-sharing agreements on grade separations are not usually a 50-50 on the whole thing. The Canadian Transportation Agency outlines guidelines for cost-sharing agreements between municipalities and a rail authority. Generally, they have 3 options. 50-50 is one of the options on a cost-share split, and it's all based on an exposure index and how that exposure index is factored into the calculation, whether it's the town's traffic or the municipality's traffic or the rail's traffic on the rail that's causing the need of the grade separation. Full project cost is a little different than what usually happens, is they usually apply the cost sharing agreement to what they call the basic cost of the grade separation. Typically that includes the structure, the retaining walls, and the work required to get the road under and back to tangent on both sides. New features would not be included in the cost-sharing agreement, but in this case, Metrolinx, the agreement we've come to is 50-50 on the whole thing. That, in staff's opinion, is actually a very good deal. And I would say that it's better than, well, it is better than what CTA, the precedent CTA recommends. They've also agreed to let payment terms be such that it could match our municipal budget timing. So if our budget wasn't ready for a few years, we'd pay them when our budget monies are available. Burloak, the AFP is being released next week. The preferred consortium will be selected in 2018. A contract award is expected early in 2019. Tentative construction schedule, they expect to start in the spring of 2019. A project like this takes about 24 months to complete. I just want to put an asterisk next to the spring 2019 start date, because it is the consortium's call on when they start, but all indications would be this would go in 2019. The town and Burlington have provided our own estimate for the project cost. We're at $54 million. That excludes AFP fees. There's an interesting point that I just learned in the last week, is that Infrastructure Ontario applies a fee to the AFP process. So we have to resolve what these fees are and what these other costs may be. We believe $54 million is more than reasonable for this grade separation, and our share would therefore be $13.5 million based on that. We have that money. We've budgeted for that cost. I just want to note that there were public information centers scheduled in 2017 that showed the options, et cetera. So we're pretty much done the public process. We would like to have another public meeting prior to the project starting so we can give more details on timing, et cetera, to our stakeholders. Kerr Street, town completed an EA in 2009, and you approved that. It did recommend an underpass as well, 4-lane platform from Spears Road to north of the QEW. The road takes a new westerly alignment to avoid the 16-mile creek top of bank. Picture us digging down significantly to build an underpass right at the top of the bank. Not a good idea. So we have to move the road over to the west. And because of that, there are significant, and I've underlined significant, property impacts. There's several properties that are impacted that we're going to have to acquire land. And I'll tell you that this is going to be one of the more complex civil engineering projects the town has ever undertaken. Project has been programmed into our capital forecast, roughly 2022 to 2024 timeline. I can tell you that there has been monies already in the budget from before, because we're using that to assist us with design and with land acquisition costs. The town actually acquired one large property on the east side at the corner of Shepherd several years ago. That was in anticipation of this project. We did initiate the project as a town standalone project a couple years ago, maybe 3 years ago. We've actually got it to the 30% design stage. And as I said, some of the land has already been secured and others have just been initiated. After Metrolinx announced their desire to move forward with Burl Oak, staff inquired about partnering for Kerr. And we believe there was a significant benefit to both parties. In our opinion, and sorry to the Ward 1 people, but Kerr Street to us is the more significant project than Burl Oak. And we needed a funding. Yeah. I don't mean that in a bad way, but I mean it is a significant project. We needed some spark, some funding to help us with that project. So Metrolinx finally agreed to include this in their AFP. It's going in the same AFP as Burl Oak. In this case, though, they don't have to update the EA because the EA is quite recent, 2009. The deal on Kerr Street is the same as Burl Oak, 50-50 cost share, based on the full project cost with some exceptions. The costs can include previous costs incurred by Oakville, so the lands that we acquired before all get thrown into the calculation. This deal as well is better in our opinion than what CTA guidelines have provided in the past. Payment terms, again, will match our municipal budget timing, so we don't have to pay them back till 2023 or 2024. And in this case, they've agreed to assign the land or take on the responsibility of some of the land dealings. And that's what we've both been focusing on. The land acquisitions for Kerr Street is the most complicated piece in the puzzle because we need the land within a certain time frame in order to move forward on this project. They are releasing this, as I said, as part of the Burl Oak AFP next week. A similar timeline. They would like to select a preferred consortium in the autumn and award the contract early in 2019. Now, the tentative construction schedule, we're not as sure on not that we were 100% sure on Burl Oak either, but on Kerr, what we believe will happen is advanced work could start in the spring of 2019, which would take the rest of the year, 8 to 12 months. That work is relating to utility relocations along the rail corridor. It's related to the lowering of the Trans-Northern Pipeline, which runs parallel to the tracks, just north of the tracks, and as well as pre-building a storm sewer outlet to the 16-Mile Creek to drain the lowest point in the underpass. The main contract, we believe, would start in the spring of 2020, and this is a more complex project. 30 months is probably a more reasonable timeline for a project like this, for the main contract. We've selected the spring of 2020 because some of the property, or at least one of the properties, requires major renovations to their property, and they need some time to get that work underway and completed before we can come in and start doing our work. Our estimate for this project is roughly $70 million. That includes the work that was done before, some of the land acquisition from the past. So the town share on this project, based on that estimate, is $34.9 million. What I forgot to say on Burl Oak, this applies to Burl Oak rather as well. Our funding, it's development charge driven. Again, this excludes AFP fees, and we have to work that out with Metrolinx. So the agreement principles is what we're asking you tonight is to approve. Well, you get to receive the report. It seems you always get to receive reports. But the main recommendation is that you delegate the authority to execute the agreements with Metrolinx to the CAO and the town solicitor based on the fundamental principles outlined in this report, which are 50-50 for each project based on CTA guidelines. Previous costs are included in the project, so that's relating to any land that we required on either project, construction costs that we incurred before, engineering, and the EA costs. That all gets thrown into the calculation. The cost apportionment is based on full project costs, but there are some exceptions for Kerr. Now, the exceptions for Kerr are as follows. Metrolinx is saying that they want the project limit at the south end to end at Spears Road, at the north leg of Spears Road, because the intersection work that's included in this project is actually more related to the Spears Road EA, which is something they're not participating in. We're going to work on them a little bit and hopefully get them to include that as well. And the other feature that they typically wouldn't pay for is any of the premiums related to streetscape features. We're looking at providing some level of streetscape between Spears Road and the rail corridor, decorative poles, benches, decorative hardscaping, and what will happen here is Metrolinx will say, well, the premium costs associated with that would be at 100% the town's expense. That's understandable, but we're not looking at millions of dollars for those features. Our share may be slightly more than 50%, but not much more. The assignment, the agreement principles includes that Metrolinx is going forward with some of the land acquisitions, and we're dealing with others. And another key point here that we negotiated in our verbal agreement is that the project estimates are to be agreed upon between the municipality and Metrolinx. So there was some concern over whether we didn't agree with what Metrolinx said this was going to cost. We've retained a third party to do our own estimate work. So we're hoping that we can agree to the price that we've resolved. And the payment terms, which I've mentioned, which will align with our budget. That's my presentation, and answer questions if you have any.
Well, I've had an indication of some kind of remarks by two councillors, and I would just ask, are the AFP charges also eligible for DCs?
I would imagine so.
Well, in that case, I have to say, staff have done an outstanding job of bargaining for the town's interests, and I congratulate you and thank you. Councillor Duddick, are you first? Councillor Duddick.
Yes. I just wanted to commend staff for all their hard work on this. As many of you realize, this has been a long time coming, and the fact you got this expedited earlier is very, very gratifying to people, not only in the Kerr area, but I dare say people in the northern quadrant of the town who use that area to come down to access the GO train station. And today, Councillor Chisholm and myself had an opportunity to meet with staff and members of Metrolinx, along with the Kerr BIA and the Chamber of Commerce. And the overview you gave was extremely informative, and we appreciate the time that you're taking to do those kind of meetings, because, as you've said, this is such a huge project. To get that information distributed proactively is paramount. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I may add, I sort of ended one slide early. There's a next step slide there in front of you. I don't think I have to, I don't have to go through that. It's pretty much been covered, but we do have the first public meeting for Kerr Street in 2 weeks, May the 2nd at the Kerr Senior Center, and we're in the middle of issuing all the notices to the community in the area.
Councillor, now that you've seen the additional slide, do you want to change anything you said? Councillor Chisholm, you're next.
Thank you, Worship. I'm really impressed with respect to the process that you put this in, Dan, the coordination and the pieces that have to go to this. This is very complex, and I'm very excited that we're moving forward as quickly as possible, and the consortium coming together. And I think it's very exciting for Kerr Street, but also for the whole town in its entirety. It is something that has been a long time coming, and what I'm really impressed is that you did indicate that when this construction does happen, we'll still have traffic flow going over those tracks, so there's no complete blocking of that. And so I'm looking forward to this. I know we're going to have some bumps in the road, but I'm very impressed of what you've done and staff. My congratulations to everyone. Your Worship, I'd like to move this motion for approval.
Thank you for the motion. Councillor Elgar, I understand you have remarks.
Yeah, actually, it's a question of staff. That was a good presentation. I appreciate it, Dan. My question is DC driven, and you mentioned it's DCable, but I'm just wondering, what is the benefit to existing, or is this 100% growth, which is really good news if it is?
I'm going to have to get back to you on that. It could be 90% DC eligible with a 10% benefit to existing. I'm blanking out right now. I can have an answer for you in the morning, if that's okay.
No, that's fine. I just
the
wondered,
worst-
this could be
yeah.
really good news if we're getting the full pop.
Yeah, I'm blanking out right now. It's either 90-10 or it's 100% DC.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you. Good work.
Shall I put the vote? All those in favor? Opposed, if any, and that carries with evident gratitude from both sides of the room. If we turn our attention now to number 9, Amanda St. John is possibly with some assistance from Dorothy St. George going to give us our Economic Development Annual Report.
Good evening, Mayor Burton and members of council. I'd like to introduce you to Amanda St. John, and she is responsible for the research and marketing and economic development. She joined the town about a year ago and previously worked with the town of Milton. This is her first presentation and report to council.
Welcome. As you've seen already, we can be gentle.
Thank you.
Okay. So, good evening, Mayor Burton and members of council. On behalf of the Economic Development Department, I'm pleased to present you with the 2017 annual report. 2017 was a year of investment in Oakville. Several new companies moved to our town. Our existing companies experienced growth, and development activity took the form of new projects and project expansions. I know you're all familiar with the report at this point, so tonight's presentation will really be a highlight of some of our key findings from this year. It is good to be home, says founder and CEO of Loraxian when asked about the decision to locate 50 specialized jobs and headquarters here in Oakville. Loraxian is a leader of energy and infrastructure solutions, specializing in renewable energy production. This quote is a great testimonial to the importance that the talent and livability play in attracting some of our international companies. Oakville continues to be a prime destination for investment attraction, and we're proud of the fact that the community has consistently attracted new companies and an average of 1,000 jobs a year for the past several years. So Oakville's economic development strategy identifies 4 key sectors as priority targets for investment, and in 2017 we saw investment in all of these sectors. Oakville welcomed several new companies to the community last year. PCL Constructors, Canada's largest general contractor, moved into new office space with 550 employees. The company has done many notable projects, including the Air Canada Centre and the Four Seasons Centre for the Performing Arts. In addition to these new company arrivals, we saw significant investments made by our existing companies in job creation and facility upgrades. Of the more than $90 million spent in commercial construction last year, $51 million was for alterations and improvements. And this continued investment is a clear indication of the strength of our economy. So the recent Amazon HQ2 site selection search demonstrates to us the need for municipalities to remain competitive for investment attraction. And as such, we monitor a couple of things to determine our competitive advantage: property tax rates, development charges, and industrial land sale values. We benchmark these across GTA municipalities to understand our competitive positioning. Historically, the cost of doing business in Oakville has been higher than surrounding municipalities. However, Oakville now ranks within the mid-range in all competitive categories. So this means that the community is well positioned for future growth. The department also monitors the non-residential real estate market to understand opportunities for investment. Our office vacancy rate is about 22%, which is fairly high. It's about 11% across the GTA suburban market. We're getting lots of absorption and also new development, which is a good sign. And it's the added new inventory together with the absorption that's keeping our vacancy rate relatively high. Industrial inventory remained constant at 18 million square feet. Availability dropped to 2.6% in 2017, which signals a gap in the industrial market. And also to mention, new to the real estate market this year were 2 private sector co-working spaces. That's Ace Co-working and AlternaWorks near Bronte Go. And these flexible spaces meet a need in the local market, ensuring a variety of options to support business growth through every stage of development. So this slide highlights overall trends in building permit activity. The total value of ICI permits reached more than 286 million in 2017. So this includes new development, alterations, and expansions to existing sites. New commercial development has historically followed a cyclical pattern of peaks and valleys. As you can see in the featured graph, activity alternates between years of construction and absorption. The largest permit issued in 2017 was for the Metrolinx Operations Center on Cornwall Road, which is set to bring 100 jobs to the community this year. For the most part, commercial development last year took the form of alterations and improvements, with major employers like Ford investing in continued operations in the community. We had a great year for industrial development, with the highest square footage of new development since 2010. And this new construction helps meet the need that I mentioned earlier. That was the gap in the industrial market. So non-residential construction activity continued to flourish in 2017. Pictured here are some slides highlighting some of our key events, including the opening of Fengate's Oak West Corporate Center Flex Office development on Michigan Drive, a groundbreaking for the IQ Center development on Iroquois Shore Road, construction of the new Aviva Canada office building, which will bring 700 jobs to the community when complete in June, and PCL's move into their new modern office space on Bristol Circle. So the department also looks at demographic information as part of our competitive positioning. Statistics Canada released 2016 census data in phases throughout 2017. The data shows that our population is highly educated, specialized, and diverse, which comes as no surprise to us. The community's labor force provides an excellent resource for company investment and expansion. Census commuting patterns also highlight that more than 55% of residents commute to a job outside of Halton Region. As new companies move to Oakville, there's a definite opportunity to provide our residents with the chance to both live and work in the community. So 2017 department initiatives. Several initiatives were undertaken in 2017 to support investment attraction, business retention and expansion, and corporate initiatives as detailed in the annual report. Those are some of our highlights. A key area of focus for us in support of investment attraction in 2017 was to develop a marketing strategy to get the word out about Oakville. In January, our new Invest Oakville website was launched as a comprehensive resource for new and expanding businesses. In September, the department was recognized with a Gold in Excellence in Economic Development Award for the website by the International Economic Development Council. The department also concentrated efforts on growing digital audiences in 2017 through social media and e-newsletters to drive traffic back to the new website. And many of you are familiar also with the Oakville Perspective piece that we did to spotlight some of our leading businesses in the Globe and Mail and to highlight the town's vision for the downtown. So 2018 department work is already well underway with the mitigation report update presented to council last week and the Brownfields Community Improvement Plan coming in June. Other initiatives are outlined in the report, but I wanted to note the development of our 5-year economic development strategy as the town's current 10-year strategy reaches completion. Public consultation with community stakeholders will begin in the coming months. So before I conclude the presentation, I wanted to preview our new investment attraction video for those of you who haven't seen it. The department worked with Black and White Media to make a video that's people-focused and highlights the livability of the community, a key component to our economic success. As of Tuesday, the video went live on our website and social channels and has already been played more than 600 times, which we're really excited about. We're encouraging businesses and local partners to help us to share the video to tell the story of what it's like to live and work in this incredible community. Here is the video.
Sure is a pretty place.
It is. It's beautiful. Oh. Okay, so that concludes my presentation. I'd like to thank you, Mayor Burton, and members of council for your time this evening. And I'd also like to encourage you to connect with Invest Oakville via our website and social media and our e-newsletter to stay informed about department updates and events. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you very much for an outstanding debut performance, as I would have said in my television days. Council, are there questions? Is there a motion to receive? Councillor Hutchins, all in favor? And that's received. Thank you very much for your presentation. Council, we now turn to item number 11, the Heritage Oakville Advisory Committee matter. You had lots of time to study this report. Is there questions or motion? Councillor Duddick. All right. Let's try to be clear what we're moving. So we're moving that the heritage permit application for construction of a new rear addition and a new detached garage at 271 McDonald be approved, subject to the conditions. And we're moving that the, so B is deferral. Are you moving deferral? No. So on B, what is your, you're moving the alternative, which is that the application be denied. All right. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries. Thank you. So then, if we could have a motion to rise and report. Councillor Lischina, thank you. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. I rise and report the Committee of the Whole has met and made recommendations on April 19th public hearing items 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm not sure that's correct. April 19th?
Oh,
16th, maybe.
16th. Yes, sorry, 16th.
April 16th, public hearing items 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Discussion items 6, 10, and 12. And on April 19th, discussion items 7, 8, 9, and advisory committee minutes. Item 11 is noted by the clerk. Could we have a mover and seconder for my report? Councillor Chisholm and Councillor Elgar, all in favor? The report is adopted. A mover and seconder for consideration and reading of the bylaws would be a good idea now. Councillor Grant and Councillor Knoll, thank you for that. All in favor? And the bylaws as listed in the agenda are adopted. Thank you very much for your time and attention. That completes our work this evening. It's been for 2 days. It's been great working with you, and we are adjourned.